Welcome to the Regenerative Brands podcast. This is a place for consumers, operators, and investors to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
On this episode, we have Jordan Rubin, who is a co-founder and the CEO at Ancient Nutrition. Ancient Nutrition is supporting regenerative agriculture with its regenerative organic certified farms in Missouri and Tennessee, and their various superfood supplement products. Their mission is to save the world with superfoods. In this episode, we learn about Jordan's personal health journey and his experiences as a two-time founder in the natural and organic supplement space. We take a deep dive into the countless regenerative initiatives that Ancient Nutrition is pioneering both on their farms and in their products. And we talk about all the hot button topics like certifications, retailer adoption, and scaling regenerative brands. Jordan's energy is infectious, and his passion about their work and regenerative agriculture at large left me super fired up to continue our work. We're excited to share this episode with you all. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Regen Brands podcast. Super excited today to have Jordan Rubin of Ancient Nutrition joining us. So welcome, Jordan.
It's great to be here, gentlemen.
We're stoked to have you, man. I have seen Ancient Nutrition around for a while. I'm really looking forward to hearing the origin story. I also didn't know until Climate Day at Expo West that you guys were really supporting Regen. So that was news to me, super awesome. And we're looking forward to learning more. But before we do, for the other consumers who are not super familiar with the brand, give us the lay of the land. What does Ancient Nutrition make, and where can people find you today?
Ancient Nutrition manufactures dietary supplements and functional foods. We're omni-channel, so we're available at ancientnutrition.com. We're available at retail stores, primarily natural and specialty, several thousand, health practitioners' offices, and Amazon.com and other marketplace purveyors.
And then from a retail perspective, is that MULO, is that natural, is that across the board, like distribution everywhere?
Yeah, we're primarily natural. We love Whole Foods, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Fresh Time. And then we're a little bit crossover, Publix, H-E-B, Wegmans, but we're really, I'll say, particular about where our products are sold. We go by the adage, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. So we have not made the big jump to MULO, but we're sort of picking our spots, like a running back that's waiting for a hole to open. It's the best way to describe. I don't want to land in the left tackle's rear end. No butt fumbles here.
You're Barry Sanders just scrambling in the backfield, waiting for that opportunity. Hey, you can scramble for a while. That's great.
Jordan's going football on me within first 2 minutes of the pod, so he knows how to speak my language. I love it. I use the multi-collagen protein in my coffee each morning, chocolate. So that's my product recommendation for our listeners.
Awesome.
But Jordan, this isn't your first foray into CPG or the natural products industry. So, give us a little bit about your background and how Ancient Nutrition got started.
Okay, I'm going to go way back because I've been doing this for 26 years now, which is shocking even to me. So I started a company called Garden of Life, which is the leading brand of dietary supplements in retail. I started it after overcoming multiple incurable illnesses. Crohn's disease and 18 other illnesses caused me to be at 104 pounds in a wheelchair, deathly ill. If someone wants to check out, I have a before photo. You can go to Google Images, type in my name. Now, I will warn you, there are two Jordan Rubins. There's the science fiction horror film writer that my kids call the bad Jordan Rubin. And then there's me, who his kids call the weird Jordan Rubin. So you'll see a photograph of my me in my worst condition where I asked my mom to take my picture. And I'm so blessed that I did, because I can't describe to you guys what it was like being trapped in a prison that was my own body, sick for 2 years. It's like a 24-hour virus for 24 months or food poisoning for 2 years. I didn't sleep. Wow. I wasted away, was in a wheelchair, and tried conventional medicine, which failed. Alternative medicine failed. Ultimately met a man who taught me how to eat like the Bible, history, and science. I ended up writing a book about it called The Maker's Diet. And because I was introduced to a particular type of probiotic, I ended up starting a company called Garden of Life. And I wrote about my journey in books such as Patient Heal Thyself and The Maker's Diet. I have a new book called The Probiotic Diet that just launched. Excited about that. Nice. And then during a course of time at Garden of Life, we were growing. It was amazing. But I had this epiphany. I was in a 45-foot tour bus, the kind that rock stars are in, traveling America, promoting a book, filming a TV show, and speaking at every health food store, church, bookstore I could find. And I was riding somewhere between Nebraska and Iowa, and kind of all windmills and green. It was in May, so you could see some of the crops growing. And I remember looking and seeing green plants, and I thought, wow, that's a beautiful field. And as I rolled closer, I saw monocrop, genetically modified corn and soy. And I said, this isn't beautiful. This is my grandchildren's stolen future. And immediately from there, I made a commitment, or I should say a recommitment, that I'm going to be part of the solution. I'm going to become a farmer. Now, I left out the fact that during the time I was getting well, which was in California, I was relying on foods that were illegal. Now, today we talk about lots of things people are consuming that are illegal, but this was raw milk and raw carrot juice and grass-fed meat. And so I would have to buy these from the health food stores in California, and they were often gone because the medical milk board was always trying to get rid of raw milk. And so I'd go with my little cooler. I lived in a motorhome at the time with no generator. And if I didn't get my raw kefir and my raw cream, I didn't think I was going to be healthy that next day. And so I was so passionate about these foods, and I knew that they were helping me. And I said, one day I'm going to grow and raise the world's healthiest foods, because I was relying on these, and I saw the handwriting on the wall that our food freedom was going to be an issue. And I wanted this for me, my family, and hopefully to share with others. At that time, I didn't have a penny to my name. I was basically 2 years out of commission, but I knew that there were others like me. And if I would be blessed to get well, then I would spend the rest of my life helping others overcome disease, or better yet, avoid it. So I only got you up to Garden of Life. And so in 2008, I said I was going to be a farmer. In 2009, I sold Garden of Life, bought my first farms, stayed on for a few more years, launched a food and beverage company, which we can talk about if you want to talk about how to staple $10 bills to every bottle of product you sell. Maybe that could be for another podcast. And then I sat out a little bit of time, which you know how that goes when you sell a company. But in 2016, I had another health challenge, and I've asked God to not be a guinea pig for my companies that I start. I want to learn from someone else's experience, my goal. So I had a major knee injury, and I wasn't able to walk. I couldn't put any weight on my right foot for almost 3 months. And this is how I discovered a way to get a powerful superfood called bone broth in people's lives in a powder form, creating the first bone broth protein and a subcategory of protein. That was in 2016. I launched Ancient Nutrition along with my friend and protege, Dr. Josh Axe, who had become a very successful, I'll say, health influencer, blogger, etc. And Ancient Nutrition was in the marketplace in May of 2016. And you'll love this part, because I know what you two like by listening to all 29 of your current published podcasts. More as this will air, probably 30. But we had the concept for bone broth protein in February, and we hit the shelves at the end of May. It was the fastest, craziest product launch, and we immediately, literally in weeks, became the number 2 selling protein powder in health food stores. It was an awesome journey, and it spawned Ancient Nutrition, which now stands for so much more than bone broth protein and collagen and probiotics. I'm wearing my ranch shirt here. Regenerative Agriculture, Nutrition, Climate, Health. Our mission is to save the world with superfoods, and we're doing it with the utmost transparency and integrity. And it's a passion of ours to heal the planet, feed the world, and eradicate disease.
Wow. There's a lot to
Where's the
unpack
brick
there.
wall for me to run through? I'm ready.
Let's go, man.
Let's go.
The first thing I have to mention, for most of our listeners, I think, listen, they don't watch these podcasts. And picturing you today, the version of you that I'm seeing at 104 pounds is like, my brain's having a hard time comprehending that. So for those who are only listening and you can just hear Jordan's voice, like you can probably tell he doesn't sound like he's 104 pounds, and he certainly isn't today. I'm not going to try to guess your weight, but I throw, a bit more on there,
Yeah,
in a positive
185.
way.
Say,
Yeah,
I've been this same weight since I was 16, other than going to 104 for 2 years. So yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty radical.
crazy.
Wow.
So that's incredible. We appreciate you sharing your health journey. As you already know, there are so many people who are in the regenerative space, in the founder space, who have started with their own health issues. Anthony and I both have our own stories that are similar, had our health issues that brought us to understanding the power of food. So appreciate that share. I don't even know where we want to go from here. AC, I'm going to give it to you, man. There's a lot to touch on. So your call, man.
Yeah, no, I love it. Jordan, one thing that I think is interesting is we're seeing this proliferation of influencer brands, right? Where influencers are playing a key role. So my mind really wants to learn about why you decided to partner with Dr. Axe and how that's been helpful, and just like kind of the story there.
That's a great question. So when we started Ancient Nutrition, I had a team of people, some of which were holdovers from Garden of Life, and a team that I was really familiar with. And we knew retail, we knew manufacturing and formulation, supply chain, but building a direct-to-consumer business was not something we had experience in. We sold to iHerb and obviously Amazon and some of the others, Thrive, et cetera. But that expertise and specialty, social media marketing, et cetera, was not something that we were excellent in. And Josh had just become an amazing sort of pioneer in that space. He was a big fish in a small pond. I mean, just to be very specific, they were getting a 12-to-1 ROAS on Facebook advertising and just selling $20,000 to $50,000 worth of product on a single Facebook Live. So this was wild. Back when that was worth doing. So we looked and said, imagine if we could take a retail experience team, especially natural. That's really our primary, our bread and butter, so to speak, sprouted einkorn bread, that is, with manufacturing expertise and supply chain, and combine it with a young sort of millennial driven social media, advertising, blog, YouTube channel. And it was awesome. And so I said, Josh, we're going to do YouTube lives or Facebook lives every day. If you're doing $20,000 to $50,000 in sales, which we did, we moved our team to Franklin, Tennessee, where his team was located. And in January of 2017, we officially kicked off the Ancient Nutrition that we know today, which was a merger, or really more of an acquisition, of Ancient Nutrition and the Dr. Axe company. And so we're in our 7th year. It's been an amazing journey, and we have been able to really leverage our direct-to-consumer platform, which is now extended to television, which has been my background. So we have a very large contingent of our business, which you would call infomercial, long-form advertising on television, direct response. We've got a powerful database. We still do social media advertising, although we pick our spots, and our ROAS is not 12-to-1, more like sometimes 0.12 to 1. But we are really, what we like to describe ourselves is the most fully scaled, omni-channel, multi-category dietary supplement company. And we are focused on saving the world with superfoods, and that's a double entendre, as you probably guessed.
Yeah.
Still a lot to unpack. There's one other thing I forgot to call out earlier. As you know, I work for Kettle on Fire Bone Broth. I don't know if you know the origin story of Kettle on Fire, but it also started with a knee injury. So interesting parallel there, that knee injuries seem to be bringing bone broth to the market in different categories. So just got to touch on that and the power of bone broth as a healing, nutritional powerhouse.
Absolutely.
One of the other things I want to touch on, you mentioned your transformative drive between Iowa and Nebraska, and looking at those monocrop fields and realizing this is sealing the future of our children, right? When did regenerative agriculture pop up on your radar? How did it pop up on your radar? Was that part of your health journey? Was that a different time? What was your indoctrination into the movement?
That is a great and a multi-layered question, Kyle. So every answer I'm going to have is going to be a lot to unpack. So let's just get that on the table right now. So if you go back in my history, my dad was a hippie in New York, smart hippie, because he was going to become a medical doctor. and he was very anti-establishment. And so he was reading a magazine called Prevention Magazine, which was a health magazine at the time by Rodale, and he learned about naturopathic medicine. And he ended up going from New York, NYU, instead of having a research fellowship, he was practically disowned by his family because he went to Wichita, Kansas, where the National College of Naturopathic Medicine started in 1973. It moved outside of Portland. And in 1975, I was the first child born to 4 naturopathic students. My dad was in the first class of what is now National University. John Bastyr of Bastyr University was his classmate. And he went on to become a chiropractor because on the East Coast, naturopathy was not legal. And so he has a connection to a Rodale story. My dad also was an avid gardener, as was my grandfather. But in terms of my regenerative farming roots, I didn't grow anything as a child. I didn't have a green thumb, a green pinky. I was a sort of concrete jungle suburbanite who ate health foods begrudgingly that my dad made me because they all tasted like crap, and he made me eat carob and told me it was as good as chocolate. That's the first health food lie you hear when your parents are. And the school lunch, don't even ask. Like, it was an absolute horrifying experience every day because back then food was awful. Today, health food's like the coolest and the greatest. And I mean, like Alex Ice Cream and Alexander Dairy. And I mean, come on, you know, it's like,
as a kid, were you like trying to steal?
Crazy.
Were you stealing snacks from your friends? Like going to your friends' houses, just trying to find like, you know, something that you
100%. The problem is I couldn't trade anything in my lunch because it was untradeable.
Right. What was the thing that you craved most as growing up in like a super healthy house, which is the opposite of the house I grew up in? What was like the guiltiest, the best thing that you could get, like as a kid? What were you going for?
Well, when I went, you know, I'm thinking about it right now. When I went to this one friend's house, he had Pepperidge Farm cookies with like jelly in the middle. Or at school, you're talking about now and laters. I'm a little older, I think, than you guys, but you know, Laffy Taffies, and you know, it was eat healthy and at the home. But then I didn't own it. Now, I will say this about my kids, a shout out. You could not give them junk food. They used to go to Expo West. They didn't want to go to Disneyland. They wanted to go to the show floor. They were young and cute back then, they tell me. But they would turn down samples if something wasn't pasture raised, if something wasn't sprouted. I was really proud of them, but it was embarrassing for the vendors who were like, try my ice cream. You have non-fat dry milk powder in there, and I don't think it's grass-fed or organic. So they own it, which is so much better than me. I was just sort of begrudgingly dragged along. But today we're raising an army of kids who live the life, which is super, super exciting.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So I know I was in sort of getting into a different sort of tangent there, but when I started getting well, I knew that the food that I was eating, the raw dairy, I knew that the raw carrot juice and some of these other ingredients, grass-fed meat, pasture-raised poultry, was coming from somewhere that was different. If not, why would it be illegal, or why would it be only available in certain states? And so I began to visit farms, and then I began to partner with farms. When I wrote my Maker's Diet book, I sent a copy to 1,500 grass farmers, everyone I could find on eatwild.com or realmilk.com. And I offered them a case of books to give away free to promote their businesses, because I knew how hard being a local farm was. And I went on my tour in 2008, and I visited dozens of farms across the board, from Amish farms that wanted to do it right but didn't have the resources, to organic farms that had the resources but wouldn't go all the way. And so that's when I learned about regenerative farming. It really wasn't called that then, but I called it beyond organic farming. And so we began to do that in 2009 when I started purchasing property. And really since then, I have been engaged in regenerative agriculture. In fact, Blake and Stephanie Alexander partnered with us, and I taught them about A2 dairy because I was changing my entire herd to A2. They weren't at the time. And I'm so proud of what they're doing. Anyone that consumes dairy, other than, you know, they believe in raw dairy the way I do, but it's not practical to get it out there to the world. But what they've done is just absolutely amazing. So I ran across people like Blake and Stephanie in 2010, and we had all these great people come alongside us or advise us. And we developed a system over time that we now incorporate, which we believe will unequivocally proved that we can regenerate lands and ecosystems while producing the world's healthiest ingredients in a way that's never been done before, to the tune of adding 1 inch of topsoil a year, not 500 years like it takes according to science in nature. So we are, Rodale is our research partner. We have Rodale scientists on our farms. We have farms in Tennessee and Missouri. And we are a year and 9 days into this 14-year research study. And I will tell you guys, you got to come do a remote from one of our 2 farms. We have orchards. We raise exotic livestock like water buffalo and yak. We have cows, goats, sheep, chickens, ducks, and turkeys. We're doing research into pet nutrition, human nutrition, organs, the whole shebang. So we're omnivorous, omni-channel, on a mission, and taking no prisoners when it comes to creating the highest standards on the planet.
I love it. I love it. Let's dive a little deeper there, Jordan. So you have the multiple farm properties. I believe they are ROC or in the process of being ROC. Not all that product is sold through the Ancient Nutrition label. Some is. Break down for us which route there, and then just tell us more about kind of how the farming stuff has come together and like goals for the future of it and how it's all tying together.
Absolutely. So we have 2 farms that Ancient Nutrition operates, but in full disclosure, they are owned by myself and Josh. So they're separate entities, and you guys can understand that. We have institutional investors in Ancient Nutrition, and they often like to be capital light. So they're all about the brand. I'm all about the asset. So I'm totally fine with that. So our Tennessee farm's 133 acres. Interesting note, it started as an organic hemp genetics farm. So that's how we started it in 19. But at the end of the year, that year, I said, you know what? There's way too much hemp and not enough consumers who can use it. And legislation is not, and regulations are not catching up. Retailers are not on board. We need to pivot. And so we turned Tennessee into the center of regenerative agriculture. I planted 133 varieties of tropical plants, perennials, in the greenhouses that we were growing our hemp seed for CBD genetics. And so we pivoted there, but that's in our area, and that's the Ancient Nutrition headquarters. My Missouri farm's just about 4,000 acres. Since 2009 has been practicing regenerative farming, and we have very similar soil building studies going on in both. So the Tennessee farm is the first regenerative organic certified farm in Tennessee, number 47 in the world. Our Missouri farm is the first regenerative organic certified farm in Missouri, number 79 in the world.
Let's go.
We are all about it. Listen, because I've listened to all your podcasts, I know that people preach progress over perfection. I also know that many small farmers say that they're beyond organic, but yet they're not organic. They say they're paperwork away from it. I say that's a BS excuse. I don't know how else to say it. I think we need to go all the way and find a standard that can transform soil, animals, and people's lives. And so obviously, Anthony, that's how we met, but we're all in on rock. We believe in organic. We believe in non-GMO. We entertain and work with every regenerative cert that comes along so that we either get involved or we learn about it. We're also on our Tennessee farm, we're a onboarding Savory Institute hub. So we work with the Ecological Outcomes Verified program, Land to Market. We're not trying to be NASCAR with all of our certs, but if there's a meaningful organization that has set a great bar, we want to work with them and substantiate what we're doing, because we put all our chips onto the regenerative organic certified table. Now, that doesn't mean every product we have is rock. You mentioned our multi-collagen protein, Anthony, but even that product, we use an upcycled ingredient as our main ingredient, and we take all the byproduct from this eggshell membrane collagen. That's almost 500,000 pounds, and we use it as soil amendments on our farm. So everything we do, even if it's not rock, has a regenerative story, and we dedicate 1% of our revenue to this ranch project. So pretty much one bottle sold is one tree planted on our farms, not in Zimbabwe, not with the Arbor Day Foundation. Nothing wrong with that, but we're not donating, we're dedicating, and we're doing the work. And I think that's important.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
guys can't be speechless.
No, I mean, I was trying to give Anthony the mic for a second, but we're trying to decide who's going to go. There's just a lot to unpack, So I'm curious, we do hear a lot of challenges about transitioning to regenerative and developing regenerative supply chains from a lot of our brands. So I'm not trying to say that you're making it sound easy, but I'm wondering what your process was like in number
Mm.
one, getting these farmlands ROC certified, and number two, some of the challenges you're facing from the brand side and incorporating those ingredients into your product offerings, and then three, from a demand and utilization threshold perspective, is there enough to have like identity preserved rock ingredients for your entire portfolio, or are you having to, I don't want to say compromise, but split hairs, combine different source ingredients to meet your minimums just to sell your product?
Yeah, these
Nice
are great
balance.
questions, and I want to make sure you guys get the up-to-date best answers, even if I've never shared this before. So I'm kind of
We
appreciate
that.
open book. So my farm teams, and I've got two of them for the two farms, they said that rock was 10 times harder than certified organic. Now, granted, we were on land that had not used pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Even in our Missouri farm back in 2008, there was a small deer plot that was about 3 acres, but everything was fairly certifiable other than some treated wood beams. And, there's different things that you have to do, but regenerative organic certified is not just a certification, it's a verification. And you've got to constantly improve through measured outcomes, which is what I love. And on top of it, as I mentioned, we're part of the Savory Institute EOV program. So we've got those teams involved. So ROC was difficult. There's not a great supply chain. That being said, we established our own supply chain, and we've been blessed to have key retailers come to visit our farms. Whole Foods, Sprouts, Vitamin Shop, Fresh Time, HEB, Natural Grocers is coming in the fall. So we're inviting everybody who can come because we want to show them how to take a seed to a supplement. I didn't mention this, but in Missouri, we have a full-scale dietary supplement manufacturing facility on the farm that is regenerative organic certified. So it's literally seed to supplement.
Wow.
And we're actually creating an entire ingredient supply out of food waste that we pick up from 20 locations, including Sprouts farmers markets, which I thought was kind of this mushy, nasty goop. It's actually whole jackfruits, whole passion fruits and pomegranates. And of course our birds, we feed our chickens, ducks, and turkeys exclusively food waste. They're eating crab legs, lobster, steak, and then they're also eating 100 plants. So we donated 50,000 eggs to vulnerable populations, and they're the world's healthiest eggs. They just don't know it. So anyway, back to the question. So these retailers would come and they would say, Jordan, it's amazing you have these farms, but when are you going to have products that contain ingredients that you grow? And when are you going to be regenerative organic on the label? And my answer was, I don't know. Like, we planted trees, mostly perennials. It takes time to get crops. And number two, the rock standards are not really created for supplements. Let's be honest. I mean, they're for single ingredient foods, dried mango, right? Like that's a candidate. So I would say that over the last year, we have worked diligently with ROA, and I have to give Elizabeth and Paul a major shout out. Now we've put our lot in with them, but they have been amazing. And we in partnership recently certified the first standards for medicinal mushrooms. So now, and we grow mushrooms on our farm too, 17 medicinal mushrooms. So we are introducing the first rock mushroom ingredients, and we are in the process as of September, and this is drum roll please, the first ever full regenerative organic certified organic, non-GMO supplement line in capsules coming to stores in September. 95% of the ingredients are grown on our farms.
How many SKUs?
Well,
and
it
what
depends
SKUs?
on who you ask. So I formulated 50, but my retail team is wanting 12, which I get it. And so Brian and Hank, you got your way. But what we're looking at is we're going to have relationships that are unique with retailers, so that one retailer may have some exclusive SKUs
Mm.
and another one may as well. So right now, as we speak, we launched a pilot, 16 SKUs with Sprouts, that is made with rock, certified organic, non-GMO, and they've done an awesome job. They came to the table early, but we're going to launch this globally and advance now to fully rock, which has never been done. And I will be honest with you guys, the retail interest is huge. We kind of joke and say when we present this to retailers, which we're just starting to do, if they say no, what are they really saying? Like, we don't care about the planet? I mean, let's face it. They're offering vitamin C from genetically modified corn processing. People think they're juicing carrots to get beta carotene, and it comes from petroleum. So how do they not do this? But the question will be, and you will ask at the end, how do we get consumers to value regenerative organic certified above the commodity crap that sits next to it?
You segued nicely into what exactly I want to ask you. And, I'm curious, has your team done any sort of studies around this new ROC supplement line that says, like, from a nutrient density perspective or a bioavailability perspective of these nutrients, like, is there a significant difference between rock and or non-rock certified or non-rock SKUs, right? So if you're doing rock certified vitamin C, can you quantitatively prove that it is more potent, more bioavailable than the alternative?
You know what? It's a great question, Kyle. The answer is no, because it's too new. We're not even in our year one data on our own farm, but we're going to have all of that right around the next 6 weeks. So we do thousands of soil tests, plant, leaf nutrition, fruit nutrition, animal nutrition. So we will have that data of how our values increase, but we can't say unequivocally that someone else's XYZ that's organic or non-organic differs from regenerative organic. But here's what I'll say observationally. We're seeing fruit come on plants significantly faster. Here's an example, which is amazing. We planted guava seeds from fruit I bought from the store. Now, here I am, a kid from the suburbs, and I'm thinking, where do I get all these seeds? And a horticulture expert said, Jordan, you could buy fruit and plant the seeds. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, I can.
Incredible.
That's better than paying $1.50 a seed of jackfruit. So we saw guava fruit in 16 months instead of 6 to 8 years. You guys are going to love this. I bought 2 papayas at a health food store. I planted approximately 500 seeds because papayas have about 200, 250 seeds. We have already in 2 years harvested 3 generations of papayas and replanted the seeds.
That is insane. And do you attribute that to the soil health?
That's a big part of it. Insect pressure's better and lower. So I wish I could give you all the answers. What I do know is that we're seeing extraordinary things. We're planting in guilds. So we don't have, and by the way, we don't grow papayas outdoors. This is indoors. But because of rock standards, the roots have to be in the soil. So we have permanent greenhouses, and we have about 15 tropical plants all together. So we've got cacao next to noni, next to acai, next to turmeric. And so
all in the United States, because these are all
Tennessee
fruits that I associate with like being imported, but you're growing them on your soil.
Yes. And then we have outdoor plants. We grow about 50 varieties, 31 perennials that are more native to our area. And I call these America's forgotten superfoods. So for example, pawpaw, persimmon, aronia, which we know about now. Pawpaw is like the most amazing tropical North American fruit on the planet, Thomas Jefferson's favorite fruit. And no one I talk to has ever had one.
Yeah.
So we get really excited about all this, and we're doing, let me just paint the picture. So 7 years of soil building using 7 species of animals. Then we have 7 years of planting our regenerative food forest. And then as the years go by, we bring animals back into the rows. And that's our 14-year theory that we can create the world's healthiest soil right here in North America than is anywhere in any rainforest you can think of, while drawing down carbon and producing abundant ingredients for foods and supplements and beverages.
Jordan, I want you to touch on something for the audience. The how integral the animal impact is, right? And how we have to have animals in these systems for them to be regenerative, for them to build soil, and how y'all have executed that.
So I'm not going to have to talk about veganic farming on this program?
No.
I wanted to ask, how you pivoted from Garden of Life to Ancient Nutrition, because Garden of Life, correct me if I'm wrong, is a vegan supplement company. Is that correct?
Well, truth be told, the third product we launched at Garden of Life was called Goatine, the first goat milk protein. But then they moved, when I left, they moved into like the Kind diet and Alicia Silverstone and all that. But once Ancient Nutrition started in collagen and keto, they somehow woke up to the animal nutrition side. So they do have an omnivorous offering based on sort of the popularity of keto years ago and collagen. But they definitely for a while really focused on a plant-based message, which has never been my message, but I departed in that kind of came in that direction. But so animal impact is the start and finish of creating a healthy ecosystem. The truth is every ecosystem has animals, although monocrop genetically modified farming destroys many animals. There's still birds, there's still insects. This notion of farming the vegan way, it's not possible. Insects are animals, folks. Look at your biological kingdoms. I can't tell you how dealing with 26 years of idiocy has made me. Now, listen, I respect plants and I love plants. I even hug trees now. Like, I love trees.
Yeah.
But animals are integral to building the ecosystem, and our entire fertilization process comes from water buffalo, cows, goats, sheep, ducks, chickens, turkeys. And here's another thing another myth. You can see eggs at a health food store. It says 100% vegetarian fed, only if forced. My birds, we put out meat from our food scraps and vegetables. Our ducks, chickens, and turkeys, man, they're like T-Rexes. You get a snake or a mouse in their paddock, gone in seconds. So it's just we're so, I like to say, bass-ackwards when it comes to these things. But animals are critical. And if I was tasked with regenerating a piece of farmland, really all I would need to start is some temporary fence, some water, and some animals. That would be the strategy for probably a number of years. And it's the simplest, easiest, and only way to do it. And we've even convinced some farms that are vegan to at least use animals in their farming, even if they don't believe in the philosophy of eating them.
Right. And so you mentioned 7 animals, and you've given us a list a few times. Why do you have that level of diversity in the animals you choose? What role do they serve? Is there an order of operations in terms of you graze this animal here, followed by this animal? Like, walk us through that process.
Great question. I don't have time to tell you why I started buying water buffalo and yak. It's an interesting story for another time. But so we have our ruminant animals first. So let me back up. 53 acres is our soil building plot on each farm. Broken down into 0.7 acre paddocks, 75 to 78 paddocks.
Okay.
Every day they move. So we start with the buffalo, cows, goats, and sheep. We have them because they each eat different things, and our land is poor. So we grow mostly what you would call weeds. So without goats and sheep, we would need to bush hog, mow, use more mechanical means. So
sorry to interrupt, but I really want to paint this picture. Are all of these animals together in this 0.7 acre? Okay, so they're all hanging out together
acres.
In harmony. What's like the number of heads per 0.7 acre plot?
All right. I want to talk about the in harmony part for a second. These animals don't necessarily live together in nature, or they didn't a year ago when we started. So this is going to be sad for some people, and I get it. I want you to understand, I'm a sensitive person. I love animals, but it has been a difficult process to train our water buffaloes to believe that the lambs are family, not furniture. And so listen, if I told you this was not without loss, I would be lying. That being said, if a water buffalo lays down now, today, a year plus later, a goat will likely get on its back and massage it. And the goat yoga is yesterday's news. So they do live in harmony. They each eat different plants, and their manure and even their urine has different qualities. So for example, buffalo manure has much more carbon. Cattle manure has more nitrogen. It's an amazing process. And by the way, this is a theory, guys. I didn't read this in a book or find this being done by a pioneer of regen. It's something we've developed. So we have those four. And to answer your question, Kyle, we started with 0.7 acres, poor soil, 12 mature water buffalo, 12 cows, 60 goats, and 60 sheep. So we're about to be in lambing and kidding season. So we're going to have 100 babies here soon.
That is some real high stock density grazing. No joke.
It's as high as we could get it with the poor soil we have. But we actually are going to increase by 3, because here's the deal. Building soil is like building muscle. You need lots of pressure, lots of stress, followed by lots of nutrition and rest. That's why we give it 75 to 78 days rest. So those animals go through. Then we've got chickens, ducks, and turkeys, 3,000. So they go in the next day. And we learn this. So these birds, they eat all the goat and sheep manure. I know it's, again, sounds gross to some people, but what is that? Pre-digested plants. And then we drop our food waste, which, by the way, it's about 10,000 pounds a week per location that we're feeding these birds. You will flip over what they get to eat. It's amazing. And if we have time, I'll give you some theories on the eggs we're creating and the meat. I've got a lot of ideas beyond our own brand. So after that, the birds move, and then we plant cover crops that will sprout in the ensuing days and weeks and will mature by the time the animals come back. So right now we're talking, and it's in May, we're still on our spring cover crop blend, primarily annuals now because our soil's so poor. But over the years, we'll be establishing more perennial pastures once the soil's better. And the team at Savory who we're working with thinks that we have 150 native species of plants that are in our seed bank, with only about 25 that have manifested. So our goal is to awaken the natural seed bank that exists that's been inhibited by poor fertility.
Right. And when you say seed bank, you mean like dormant seeds that are
dormant seeds,
pre-existing in the soil without having been planted?
No, they haven't been. They're planted over the course of history. We just don't have the right conditions for them to germinate and express themselves because this is degraded land.
Incredible.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Okay. The Regen Brands podcast. I want to move from regen to brands, right? So let's talk commercialization a little bit, Jordan. I want to kind of bifurcate two things. I want you to talk about what does it really take to succeed at retail as like a supplement brand and with the products that y'all sell? And then I want to pivot back to how do we get consumers to care about regen and what we need to do probably as a whole there. And then what are y'all doing as a supplement brand to really spread that message, get a premium, get that purchase, whatever that may be.
Yeah, so Kyle and I were about to go into regenerative la land. I could tell. So,
yes,
so Anthony,
100%.
Thank you so much for bringing us back to the title of the podcast. You know what? I did a presentation this morning with Fresh Time and their leadership. We're going to be with Whole Foods soon. We were with Sprouts last week. They're super receptive, but that doesn't mean that everybody is willing to put all their regenerative chips in the middle of the table. And so the commercialization process with regenerative has been challenging because of what you alluded to earlier. Supply chain is limited. So I'll tell you a cool story. I love it, but our team was freaking out. So I said, we're going to launch a regenerative supplement line and we're growing all of our own ingredients. And everybody said, it'll never work. We can't do it. And there's all these, we have sort of a scale on our product launch team, which is green, yellow, and red. There were all these reds down the line. I'm like, we're doing it anyway. So, because it's too important. Yeah. So Sprouts was going to launch this pilot project in late winter. And I got word that we were late on 3 of the 16 SKUs. And so I reached out to one of our farmers. I'm like, Todd, what's the deal? And he sent me a video that he was harvesting some of our plants. And I thought, you know what? I can't be mad at this because we're going to have a supplement in market 4 weeks after the ingredients were harvested on a regenerative organic certified farm. We're bringing real to food discussion and equation. So that's an inevitable challenge because I'm formulating products for September with crops we haven't planted yet. I remember bringing our president, Colt, of Ancient Nutrition to our farm. we have oregano in ROC oregano in one of our products. And he's like, where's the oregano? And I showed him 1,000 cells, those 72 cell seedling plant. And they're like, he's like, Jordan, that's the oregano? Like that, I need to get out a magnifying glass. He's like, what if it doesn't grow? And I said, this is the beauty of what we're doing. We can't allow this entire section of a store, or in some cases, entire stores, entire channels, to only contribute to waste and toxicity within our world. And if we don't do this, somebody else will, which I don't like. But also, it may never happen because we're already steeped in this. We already have the ranch project. We already operate the farms. This is the logical next step. And we must partner with other organizations to get the word out. I'll give you an example, guys. I was on a call yesterday. You know what I said? I said to our VP of Impact and Retail Marketing, I said, Christy, I want you to contact every brand that's been on Regen Brands podcast. I want to do a collab. Like, how are we going to get this out? Yeah. We can't do it otherwise. It's not going to be through paid social when they don't know what the heck regenerative means. So we're going to do this guerrilla marketing, old school style. But I will say this, the retailers have been great. We're going to present to everybody, even if we're too early for some, which we will be. Yeah. We're telling them to build a regenerative set. And we're going to cross channels, food, beverage, whatever, to get this word out. Because if we don't, there's going to be a podcast that launches that's your competitor that's going to be the Regenerative Excuses podcast. Because that's what I'm hearing each and every day I'm out there.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you leading the charge. And what I like about what you said, anything worth doing is hard, right? And that's true innovation. And, somebody's got to lead the way and somebody's got to do it first. And when you do what you're doing now and you prove this concept that, number one, it's viable, it's possible, and you bring these products to market, that becomes, possibly, I can't think of the wword. Anthony, help me with this word, replicable.
There you go.
Scalable, so it's somebody's got to do it first. So I personally really appreciate the hard work that you're doing because it can't be easy. And as somebody who has innovation headaches in the CPG side, the thought of presenting a product when the ingredient hasn't even started growing yet is absolutely mind blowing. So kudos to you for taking the risk and taking the plunge.
And we as a movement, we have to have a B2B mindset, right? Just like Joe talked about from Serenity, about how like those supply chains weren't built to like make products. Like at the end of the day, y'all, people still spend the majority of their time shopping at grocery stores and they buy packaged food products. Yes, if you can have your local farmer and you can buy as much unprocessed whole foods that are good for you from a regenerative farmer, do it. 100%. We support that. But we're not going to change the food system unless we build these B2B supply chains and build the brands that can interact with those consumers at the grocery store.
I totally agree. And listen, guys, again, having listened to all of your episodes up until now, I agree with so much of what you all have said. I've been inspired by so much of what you said. I think the danger, and this has been mentioned a few times, and I knew we would talk about this. I think the danger of this movement is the lack of governmental oversight, which we understand why Rodale and Bronner's and Patagonia did not want regenerative organic to be a governmental program. And I agree with that. But the flip side is every single low-hanging fruit regenerative certification in their pajamas is coming out there. And it's hard. When you talk to ROC, they're fired up about other brands co-opting regenerative when they have gone to such great lengths to make it mean something. And clearly Savory Institute can't be shoved to the side because of what they've been doing with grazing lands and animals. But I do think that the bottom of the barrel regenerative certifications are ultimately going to harm us. And I think that when the 72 corporations that have made regenerative pledges, like Nestle, I don't know if you've seen their site. Nestle says 50% of their ingredients are going to be regenerative by 2030. Wow. I sure hope so. But where is it going to come from? Pepsi and General Mills. So we chose Rock. Again, we're part of Regenerate America. We're part of a lot of these organizations, but we chose Rock because we wanted to reach the highest standard there is. That doesn't mean nothing else is good. We have many animals alive on our farm that will never be rock because they weren't born into rock, right? Which we can talk about another time. But I do think that the idea of progress over perfection can be abused. And I think you all have profiled some of the brands that are busting their butt to be regenerative, but then there's others that are kind of, well, you know, we don't believe there's one certification, and it's an excuse. And so what I'm saying is we need to strive for the top. If you don't have something to strive for, you're not going to hit anything meaningful. And I applaud you guys for being a mouthpiece for all things regenerative. But I'll tell you right now, I am going to be a big voice against greenwashing, because I am risking a lot, betting a lot, and making a stand that if we don't make great progress, our grandchildren may not be able to eat. So this isn't about sort of, let's just tiptoe into it, and maybe we'll do a little cover cropping and a little less tillage and a little less chemicals. Somebody's got to go all the way. And that's where I think some brands they're using excuses for not at least trying to go all the way. And therefore they're saying, well, there's no real standards. There's no one standard. There really is a high bar set. It's called rock. At least give a chance for your team and other organizations to help you get there, because Rodale alone will help you transition. I mean, there's a way to do it. So I'd like to be a voice with you all. Not everybody has to be rock, but don't give up on the highest standard, because if you do, all of your competitors who are greenwashing are going to come and take your market share eventually. You got to stand for something, as that Alabama song says, or you'll fall for anything.
Yeah, you know, I think, AC, we both have things we want to say here. You want to go first? Or you go first?
You go first.
So I think that what Rock is doing in the industry, they are the North Star. To your point, they are the highest bar. They are the gold standard. This is what everybody should be striving for. And I also think that they're, in personal opinion, that regenerative shouldn't be tied only to organic. And the reason I feel that way is because if you look at the arable land in the world, there's 74.9 million hectares of land that is certified organic today, which is essentially the size of a little bit bigger than Texas. And if we tie regenerative to organic, what I fear will end up happening is that we will make a portion of that land, a portion of Texas, regenerative organic certified. And if we don't allow some other level of market validation for those who are trying to get on the regenerative bandwagon so they can eventually, hopefully, get to rock, we will disincentivize transition. And so, to your point, how do we prevent greenwashing while at the same time allowing that market validation for those transitional farmers who, maybe to your point, don't have animals that could ever be rock certified? You know, there'd be a massive investment for somebody to cull their entire herd and start from zero so they could be rock eventually. So I think it's really important, to your point, to strive for the best, while at the same time figuring out how we allow for that transitional non-rock other good certification to exist and to coexist together and to support each other as partners rather than in competition.
And what I feel like I've seen from the community in terms of how much everyone is willing to openly discuss this and actually wants that accountability, and I'm talking about people that sit in different places on the continuum, I think we're going to be fine. I think the biggest threat is really the multinationals. And I think any effort that they're making to be more sustainable is great. What I do think might be like a nice thing for some of the more, I would call, higher up on the aspirational scale brands is like PepsiCo is just going to make more sustainable corn syrup that like none of us want to eat anyway. And so like, really, is that really regenerative anyway, based on just the food product itself? So I think there's interesting things there. I think, you know, I certainly don't know what's going to happen with the certification landscape, but one thing that's increasingly piquing my interest is with AI and with tech, you know, do we end up in a world where there's just so much transparency about the products in the supply chains like overnight that like some of these third-party things go away? I don't know how that changes the current consumer conditioning of I look for that on pack to make really quick decisions, because that's what we have now. But yeah, it's really, really complex. You know, it's something we'll all have to figure out together.
And
Yeah,
I will
Jordan,
say this, Kyle, I
go ahead.
agree wholeheartedly with what you said. I think the challenge comes when somebody can't reach a certification, so therefore they invalidate it, bash it, or they discuss what they're doing as equal to or better. I'll give you an example, Kyle. We didn't know about each other much off the air, but in 2019, I was in New Zealand and I visited a bunch of farms and one of the main suppliers of Kettle and Fire at the time. And I don't know anyone at Kettle and Fire, so I'm only speaking to what I learned from this one organization that was amazing. So I visited the farms, I saw the bones. We went to multi-species farms. We went to sheep farms and deer farms, which are popular over there, and then certainly some cattle farms. And I saw some of the most beautiful landscape. They're doing an amazing job. I wanted to literally, lay down in the grass for about 6 hours. And clearly producing food from that landscape, even absent of a certified organic standard, is amazing. However, that's not the case for every farm that's not organic that wants to be regenerative. And so I think I'm merely saying that if you don't want to strive for a great standard, don't act like it doesn't exist to try to invalidate it. As I said, when farmers say they're beyond organic, but they're not organic, what I automatically think is you're using some pesticides, some nitrogen-based fertilizers, and some level of medicine, vaccinations, et cetera, with your animals. Because I know enough to know that. I think if you're willing to let somebody see your closet, whether there's skeletons or beautiful clothes in there, that's what matters. And so we decided to say, listen, we're not all rock. In fact, some of our supply chain is very different than others. And we're clear about that. But as you said, there's still a North Star. And it bothers me when people disavow that. And I'm sure it bothers because there are brands that you've interviewed, like Blake and Stephanie Alexander, that need to get credit for what they've done. And if we
100%.
can't differentiate, then they can't get that credit. And they've done amazing things, just like Alec with his ice cream. He's going out of the way. And we met together, Anthony. We were all in the same little eating mackerel and grits or whatever that was. So
where were you?
We were at the Ecology Center at Expo West. It was a great event. Just
it was awesome.
The mackerel and grits weren't my favorite, but Alec's ice cream made up for it.
Right. No, I think, from a meat sourcing perspective, I have to, as we're in a Kettle and Fire shirt, we're for Kettle and Fire, got to talk about the sourcing for a minute. We could source organic beef bones if we wanted to and have an organic cert on our beef bone broth. However, you can finish beef cattle, as you know, Jordan, in a CAFO organic fed feedlot. We don't stand for that. We want 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised, and the best suppliers that we've been able to find across the globe, like you mentioned, they don't have an organic certification. They don't need one in New Zealand. So we just try to find the best supply chains we can and support the best bones and sources we can. Now, I also have to distinguish that Kettle and Fire has 2 identity preserved or regenerative SKUs, and then the rest of our portfolio. So our regenerative bones actually come from domestic farms. So a little bit different operations. Just want to make that distinction for any potential listener out there. But you're right. It's confusing and it's hard. And to your point, we're sort of in this Wild West moment of regenerative where there isn't unification. And there are a lot of people making different claims about what regenerative is or isn't. And like I said, it's really competitive. And what I hope we can do as a movement, what needs to happen, is, like you mentioned before, collaborating with the other brands who are doing the right work and working together to push this whole thing forward.
Absolutely. Well, I want you guys to know I am turning you on to everyone I talk to. So I talk to Fresh Time, Sprouts. I'm saying you got to listen to the Regen Brands podcast.
Thank you.
Changing my buying habits based on the brands that you're introducing, because some of them, I hear their stories and it's tough. We're very blessed that I've got a history and I've been able to succeed in certain instances in this industry. But you're asking people about funding. You're asking people about scaling supply, and some of the answers I can even hear what's behind the words and read between the lines. But I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I do think that you all are 2 of very few people that could greatly impact how people feel about certifications and how the regen movement becomes unified. I'm all about baby steps, but again, I want to know where the destination is. I oftentimes will leap forward there. Sometimes it serves me well, sometimes it doesn't. But when I see something that's difficult but possibly attainable, that's usually what I go for. And listen, this is a business podcast, essentially. I don't want to leave out the fact that by us creating the very first regenerative organic certified supplement line, that is a huge unique selling proposition and differentiator. We're not doing this solely to be philanthropic. It's a very strategic message that we believe will change the world, but give us a leg up on our competition, clearly. And that's what I hope everyone feels about regenerative, that by truly doing it, they will be rewarded. As I mentioned, Alexander Dairy and Alex Ice Cream and many others that you all have interviewed, we need to get credit for it. And people like you are helping us do that.
Super appreciate that.
Yeah, that's like my whole theory of change is when we can prove that this is better for business from the farm gate all the way to the brand, like regen will be the standard. And right now it's not. And the reason I think one of the biggest reasons I want to do the podcast is because we are highlighting the pioneers that are working their asses off to try and change that. Right. So just appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we kind of touched a little bit on the future, and what really feels to me like the future of ancient nutrition, like you're so focused on regen, like we were going to regen La La Land earlier. We're not even talking about brand stuff anymore. But what is the future for either ancient nutrition or your general regenerative endeavors? You sort of hinted at the fact that you have a couple of the concepts in the works. Like, what's the future hold for you?
So I would love, and I can't say I'm going to, I said I would love to have 100 SKUs that are rock certified organic, non-GMO, triple certified, I'm calling it. Now, that will be dependent on consumers and really, in a big way, retailers. But that is my current goal today. And we're putting more and more regen ingredients in all of our products that we can. So we're not simply rock, but that's the standard that we're moving to. We're going to do a collab with Alexander Dairy and get some ingredients from them. Like we're really trying to do that. And we're trying to expand a supply chain that's global. We're considering a farm in a tropical environment so that we don't simply have to grow our papayas and mangoes and avocados and cherimoyas and soursops indoors, because it's not as ideal to do that from a scalability perspective. So I want to have 100 rock SKUs, and we want to see these regenerative dreams we have come to fruition. I want to see stores that are in retail adopting a farm or starting their own farm, so their food waste today can become their products on their shelves 10 years from now. It's absolutely doable, 100%. We also are working on some concepts, because I mentioned we have a manufacturing entity and our farms kind of are their own entities. We're doing some really cool things in the regenerative pet space. A lot of our animal ingredients will be aimed towards that. We're looking at skincare and beverage. I met with a doctor recently who has a clinic called Mulberry Clinic. It's local here. And I said to him, Dr. Hutton, have you ever thought of creating like a mulberry medicine concept where, because mulberry is an amazing perennial. The leaves are super valuable for nutrition. The fruit is amazing. They're great at drawing down carbon, and you can feed the leaves to animals, which we do, to create sort of mulberry infused lamb or whatever. So I probably just gave all those ideas up, but so we're constantly trying to move the needle, whether it's ancient nutrition or partner brands. And I mean it when I say you guys should come out and do a remote, because we're not where we want to be. The only way we can regenerate is because we're taking degenerated lands, the before picture, and making them better. But I would love for you guys to be part of that journey. And I think we're part of a group called OSC, which you've undoubtedly heard of, One Step Closer. That we're going to probably host a retreat with our fellow executive teams on one or both of our farms, and constantly trying to engage local universities and the media and retailers. So for us, we want to advance the movement. We want to take away excuses. We want to set sort of a high bar, but we also want to be an organization that helps others achieve regenerative status through open source knowledge and even just training interns and the whole shebang. So we're really about partnership, but we don't want to partner in a watered down, wimpy definition that ends up helping nobody.
Right.
I love the people aspect, and I love humanizing this whole thing, because I think that's a really big key, is just remembering that we are nature, we are the keystone species here, and that is why we can be the greatest stewards of what we do, right? To have regeneration and have regenerative systems. All right, Jordan, closing question. I know you're ready for it, right? How do we get regen brands to have 50% market share by 2050?
I'm going to take a different tact than maybe some do, because the consumer demand is obvious. Like we have to do that. We have to make a supply chain. But what came first, the chicken or the egg? Somebody's got to start. And if you start and you're the only person on the planet, how are you going to have a supply chain? So I get all that. But I really believe that retailers need to step up and fulfill their regenerative promises. I've seen many of them say by the year 2030, they're going to be regenerative. Well, guess what? And I'm going to talk to them directly if you guys don't mind.
Please.
Step up, get rid of the crap, and focus, merchandise, and prioritize regenerative brands. Guys, we could catapult this thing if retailers will get the message. And as I like to say, wake up and smell the hummus, as long as it's made with regenerative chickpeas. But
shout out to Little Sesame.
we're omni-channel, but the heavy lift to get a consumer from 0 to 60 on regenerative is hard. But I don't know about you guys. Human nature, we walk into a store. When I'm at Whole Foods, I learn about a brand that's on end cap. I see what's on sale. I see what's promoted, because my subconscious says, well, I trust them. And if Sprouts trusts this brand, well, they must see something in it. So I would ask retailers to believe in this movement and subjugate brands that are not the future of regeneration, and allow the ones that are making the effort to be regenerative to have that prime placement. I think it'll pay off for all of us. But man, as soon as Whole Foods said that the butterfly non-GMO verified was the key to everything, not only did it stimulate brands, consumers, it stimulated competitive retailers. So the butterfly was everywhere. If we can do that and get leadership from Whole Foods and Sprouts and Natural Grocers and H-E-B and even Publix and many others, independent retail, which we love, that's the fastest way to make change, is for retailers to put us on display, Amazon to create more than a climate badge, but something that's more truly regenerative. Then the competition in a capitalistic nation is going to flock to the movement. It's got to be retail, and let's do it together. Let's get these retailers to appreciate how much more dollar in profit they're going to make per linear square foot with premium products.
Totally. And Anthony and I are almost on the border of laughing, because this is like literally, like, we just had a call about this yesterday. I just put a deck together, like figuring out like how we're going to solve this problem for retailers. It's literally like to hear somebody who I've never had this conversation with speak to it as eloquently as you just did is number one, incredible, awesome. It's a cool moment that like this is truly what needs to happen, and we can do it together. So, I mean, all I can say, my only response from everything you just shared is that I support it 100%. We are actively working to solve that problem, and would love to connect, talk about that a little bit more in depth soon.
Absolutely. And I do think that while competition reigns supreme in every industry, I've only been in this one, so I can't compare it to the wars between Coke and Pepsi or Nike and Reebok. But I think that regenerative brands can start to let our guard down and partner. So I say to everybody, there's 3 supplement brands that have regenerative organic certified farms: Ancient Nutrition, Gaia Herbs, and Herb Farm. And we're looking for ways to have collaborative end caps, collaborative sales calls, make our marketing dollars go further. Let's do something with Kettle and Fire. We may have bone broth powder, but other people want bone broth liquid. So I think you all could be a rallying piece, as can ROC and others, to have us, you know what, we'll take a risk. Sure, I'm taking some of my marketing dollars or my packaging space to promote another brand, but if we don't do it, we're going to be overrun by those who are not truly making a difference. And so at the expense of highlighting a competitor, I'm willing to do that. We've had competitors come to our farms and work on ways where we can supply overflow ingredients or technology, and it always comes back to us. Again, I'm not trying to hold hands and, sing kumbaya, as it were, but we need to do this. It's got to be a partnership between brands, because there's too few of us that are truly spending the resources, and we just don't have enough share to make this go quickly unless we hyper accelerate. Like, for example, Simply Foods, we're working on trying to get some of their ingredients into our products, and same with A-Frame Farms and Mad Ag. And so we're trying to build bridges, but it can't just be supplier, vendor, brand. It's got to be together. And I can tell you, I am talking up the brands you guys profile just as my normal course, because of how I'm becoming intentionally indoctrinated in regen brands. And it's exciting.
Yeah. And the brands, the regen brands doing the work are internalizing all the externalized costs that other people get to put a cheaper product on the shelf and sell. And so the only way we can win at this game long term is to fight together. So I couldn't agree more.
Agreed. Beautifully said. Nothing to add. It's perfect. And we super appreciate having you on, man. Yeah, this has been great. Really appreciate all the work you're doing.
Yeah, I'm not going to need my afternoon cup of coffee because I'm fired up. So
oh, man, I'm ready to run through a wall right now. And what's great is almost every conversation, I say almost, I have goes like this, whether it's with my team or with somebody in the industry, when it's on this subject, because the feeling of pioneering something that we're going to realize the benefits of in our lifetime. I've been too early before. You don't want to be early. You don't want to be late. We're on the crest of a wave. We're on sort of that bleeding edge / leading edge, because I think the three of us and so many others have no doubt that regenerative must be part of our future. We're just trying to find a way to get on that train, so to speak. And, again, when you and I met, I was not familiar with your podcast. I'm not a serial podcast listener, but there's only so many podcasts that literally every episode I can glean from. My whole sales team is listening to Regen Brands podcast. This is something people should hear, because I want them to know how these other brands are navigating the retail landscape. Because in every episode, I'm hearing, well, Thrive is excited about it, but we're not really going to this group yet. So that alone has been educating, because we're launching Rock. We want to know where we can be celebrated, not tolerated. And your brands that you've spotlighted, they're giving sort of that playbook of what works and what doesn't. So that's another angle for you all. You all need to be common educational, or I should say prerequisite educational material for sales teams of all the brands. So that's, get the vibe, get the word out.
Yeah. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for joining us, Jordan.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Really had a great time.
Yeah. For show notes, episode transcripts, and more information on our guests and what we discuss on the show, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also find our Regen recaps on the website. Regen recaps take less than 5 minutes to read and cover all the key points of the full hour-long conversations. You can check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands Podcast, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to future episodes, and share the show with your friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Regen Brands Podcast, brought to you by the Regen Coalition and Outlaw Ventures. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.